Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to Fountain of Blessings this Shabbat. And we will be doing something different for our happy hour. We will be having a marriage encounter. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce our couples for this evening. To my right, we have my nephew and his lovely wife, Chase and Magda Knight. And they have been married 3 years, and they have one on the way. So there are two people actually sitting in that chair. Raymond and Carrie Williams.
Yeah.
And they have been married 27 long years. They have two grown, wonderful, three children, that's right, 3 children, wonderful children, and we're so glad to have them on the show with us. And lastly but not leastly, we have Keena and Dre Finley, and they have been married 9 years, and they have 5 children. They have accomplished the most. And obviously they read Genesis together, where it says and multiply. Yes. So next to me is Reverend Bobby Hinton. And we will be your moderators tonight. So Bobby, do you want to explain to the people what we hope to accomplish by this encounter?
All right. First of all, we want to say welcome. Welcome to each of you. Thank you for volunteering out of your time. They are not getting paid, so we'll take donations. All right. The reason why we're doing this is because we have 3 couples here who are in various stages in their relationship. We have Magda and Chase. They're at the beginning. Mm-hmm. We have Keena. That's why I'm doing this to her, because I'm not really good with names. They're in the middle of marriage relationship, and we have our seniors here.
Raymond and Carrie.
We have these old folks here. I mean, their number is so high we can't even think that.
I like that. We're pros.
The pros. We got the pros here. We have the amateurs, and we have those that are just, they don't know if they're going to say amateur or pro. That's a good one. And the reason we're doing this, as I shared with them, is that I really feel that there's so many couples that struggle, and they struggle in obscurity, as my professor in school would say. They grope in darkness because they don't know who they can talk to and get an honest answer from, and who is going to take their situation seriously. Not only that, a lot of times when we struggle in our relationships, we always feel I'm the only one. And I believe that's a trick of the enemy, the evil one. But also I believe that it's the trick sometime of the church, because we want to give that Disney impression that everything is just fine. And we all know that's not right, because you live long enough and you go through enough things. You learn that every day it can be a struggle. It can be a change from one thing to the next. And then we as humans, and again, looking at it from that point of view, we all have our own individual things that we struggle with. It may have nothing to do with our spouse. It's just my stuff I'm dealing with. And so we want the people to come into our living room or come to our dining room table and enjoy this conversation. It's a very candid conversation. So we say, if you have young children in the room, we ask that you do not have them in the room if they're under the age of 12. So we're just gonna have a good time with it, relax, have a good time, enjoy us, and give us some good comments on it. If there's another topic in terms that you want this panel to talk about, I know, and I'm praying that they'll come back and answer those questions.
Okay.
So I think that's all we need to do.
I think that's all we need to do, and we're going to start with our first question, and we would like to address this to Keena and Dre. And so this is the question. How do you and your spouse ask for attention? How do you feel? How do you feel about giving attention, even if it's inconvenient? And what do you and your spouse do to show appreciation for each other? Like what is your strength and weakness in that area in meeting each other's emotional and physical needs?
with this question, we came a long way.
Okay.
And why I say we came a long way is, at first, my wife used to, I used to say that she used to think I'm a mind reader. Like I needed to know when she needed attention. So she would like do little things like maybe she would pout, or maybe she would, go, and try to set up a scenery, but I just didn't catch it, So I used to tell her, hey, can you, just let me know, like, hey, I want to go do this, or hey, I want to go do that, or hey, let's go sit down and talk. So what I had to do is I had to learn, over the years, course of years, that how attention, is important for me. Attention's not, really that great. I kind of like, I'll do something like, I'm kind of to myself. I'm not really, not that I don't like to be around, but I don't need a lot of attention. Okay. So I had to learn though, being married, it's not about, just me, it's her. We got kids, so I gotta give up my time. So over the years, I would ask her, I was like, well, how would you come ask me, can we do this, can we do that? And now she does it. So now she'll say, hey, can we, go here? Or hey, let's watch a movie tonight. Or can you come sit with me? So, and sometimes if I'm in the middle of doing something, I'm like, man, I don't want to be bothered right now. Like, if I'm watching
say that again. When you're in the middle of something.
Yeah, if I'm in the middle of something, I could be, fixing something. I could be playing on my computer. I could be watching TV. I could be reading, or just quiet time, just sit down, kind of collectively get my thoughts together. Okay, what's my next move? Something like that. And then, hey, let's go do this. I'm like, oh man, right now.
Why now?
So I go do that. I set that time up to go and do it. Sometimes it's still a struggle. Not that I don't want to, but it's still a struggle, because if I'm really in the middle of something, I really want to get this done. But all right, let's go do this. And then I'll wait till she go to sleep or something like that. And then I'll go, try to finish it then.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with my husband. That was one of my biggest things. I would pout, but for him, he's more, like he said, he's more reserved. He don't really need that attention. So for me, it was a bit of a challenge, because I would ask him, I'll be like, hey, let's go do something, and he's just like, he would say like, can it wait, baby? Or he'll be like, I'm in the middle of doing this, can you give me a minute? So it was like just learning each other and learning how to know when is a good time and when not is a good time, and understanding that he's different than me, because I expected him to be need the attention that I needed, so I would always like pressure him to do the things that I wanted him to do. And I would say, like, for emotional and physical, how I met his emotional and physical needs is I'm more high natured than my husband, so he's not more high natured. I need it more than he does, so which is weird for man and woman, but so I would have
more physical.
Yes.
Oh, you need more sex.
More sex. I need the kitty needed to be pet.
Oh, these are code words. I know why you didn't understand what she was saying. Baby, I'm high natured.
Oh.
No,
You need more sex.
yes, the kitty needed to be pet more.
Okay, go ahead.
So yes, I would have to come to a common ground with him and kind of let him know, like, hey, this is what I need, and I understand you don't need it like that. So let's kind of set up days, or let's set up times, and let's come to an agreement on when and when not to. And that's how. And eventually, along the way, it kind of changed. It just got spontaneous, and now he's more high natured than me. So now the roles have switched.
How do you show appreciation? I mean, other ways that you show appreciation.
So ways that I show appreciation to my husband is he's more of a service. That's his love language. So I would scrub down the house, like from top to bottom. I don't like to, but I would do that for him, because that's his love language. And yeah, that's that. He be ready. So it's a two-win. It's a win-win.
Okay.
I didn't ask you a question though. You mentioned the word pressure, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. Either the pressure to do, or the pressure to to be. Can you share a little bit more about the pressure? Because I think a lot of couples indirectly feel that pressure. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yes. So what I would do is, one of the things that I used to do is I would compare him. I'd be like, oh, well, this husband does this, so why can't you do that for me? So in turn, when he would like talk to me, when he got to the point where he was more open, he would say things like, baby, I don't like when you do that because it makes me feel pressured that I have to live up to this person and I'm not capable right now of doing that. So I had to, as a wife, I had to take 5 steps back and I had to understand that he's not that man. He's my husband that God gave to me, and I have a blank canvas. I can just mold him how I want him to be. So I just was patient and I just worked with him, and now 2 years in, I'm just.
I mean, we got some other couples. You got something else you want to add?
I was just gonna answer the question because as far as
showing appreciation.
So she likes gifts and words of affirmation. So I'll tell her how good of a job she's doing, or how she came a long way, or if she will give me hints on like something that she wants, I'll go ahead and show up with that gift.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Wow.
Oh, that's nice.
That's
nice.
Yeah, that is real, and that has really made a difference in your relationship. I can see the smiles because the things that you don't see that we see on the outside. When you all talk to each other, you look at each other, you have that smile, that appreciation. That is beautiful, man. You can't fake that.
Oh, wow.
Now we got some other couples here. Any y'all? What y'all want to say about this? Anybody?
And it's interesting that they touched on the love languages part of it, because that's what I was thinking. In terms of me, I'm a physical touch guy, so
nature.
so sometimes I feel like if I'm trying to get her attention, I try physical touch, but I had to learn. Well, I'm still learning. That's not necessarily the best thing to do, because she doesn't respond the same way I do to physical touch. So, knowing her love languages, acts of service, and quality time, I try my best to do things that will, make her happy, and of course spend quality time. I know sometimes she'll get upset, and sometimes I don't understand it if we're sitting on watching TV, and if I pick up my phone and she's like, "What are you doing?" That affects the quality of the time. So So I have to learn to really be cognizant of what I'm doing and making sure that my actions are in line with how she responds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I like the thing that you said, the quality of the time, and then being aware. That awareness, because we can all lose that. You're in your own world. You're there with your wife and stuff, and you thinking, I got to do this, and they're thinking this is our time, and you're thinking, oh, I got something to do, and they're like, what's wrong with you?
Quality of the time.
Yeah, and I'm big on like undivided attention. So if we say we're watching a movie tonight, put the phones away, that is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think the transition for me after we got married was we were, keeping it holy while we were dating. So I didn't know we did the love language. I know touch was number 1 for him. But I didn't know it was like that. So it was just very surprising to me. If we're like watching a movie after marriage and you want to cuddle, you want to be all up under me all the time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is a lot, because I am not a touch person. Like it was 0 on my love language, So I had to learn that it's not about me. Even if I don't feel like being touched all the time, it's okay for me to allow him to, express himself in that manner. But yes, clean the house, or like if I come home and all the bathrooms are clean, okay, you got my attention, So that definitely helps with us.
Wow. Anybody else? Yeah, please.
And all of this is good. And one thing we have to do as couples is we have to learn one another. That is so important through the process, because every day changes, right? And so though the day changes doesn't mean that we have to change, right? We love them according to what we know and what we understand about them, and that is so important in marriage. So I wanted to put that out there, because I know my husband's love language is affirmation, right? He loves to be encouraged. He loves to be pushed. And in the beginning, I didn't understand that, right? Because I thought me showing it, right? Not saying it, but showing it was good enough. But saying it to him was more important than me showing it, which I showed, but I showed it more than saying it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, that's very good. Very good.
Well, you remember that song, Say My Name, Say My Name. But no, I think
That's right.
I think that's
If no one is around you, say baby, I'm
hold on, girl.
Oh, sorry.
No, baby, you know I got you.
Okay.
Say your name. I know your name. Anyway, but I think that is so important. And the things that you are sharing are things that couples can really relate to.
Yes.
You know, being honest, because a lot of times we're looking at it from, well, he's just a man. You know how a man is, and they're looking at that we're just horn dogs. You know, let's just be real. And then to hear a woman and women say, I want the same thing. You don't call them horn dogs.
Right.
They high nature.
They're high nature. I like that though. You need to pet the kitty. Anyway, we're gonna move on.
Since Chit started talking about love languages, we're gonna ask you to, Magda, to answer the second question. And it's, how do you and your spouse handle conflict? What words tend to escalate the conflict, and what words diminish the conflict, and what words should you and your spouse avoid when speaking to each other?
So we just avoid conflict altogether.
Please hear how you do that.
Please,
Educate
help.
us.
That is
Figure
not
that
the
out.
answer.
Figure that piece out.
That is not the answer. Conflict is a good thing, but like the question says, how do you manage it? Right?
That's
it's
good.
important that if we have disagreements, if we have arguments, that's fine. But it's about how you handle it and how you keep it from getting to a level where it is no longer healthy, right? So there's what we call healthy conflict, right? Where you're able to express yourself. If I disagree with her, what I've had to learn is, how do I express it in such a way that it doesn't create, it doesn't escalate like the question says. So, before we got married, we did this premarital training course, and it had to do with a lot of communication skills and words to avoid and things like that. So we went in with some knowledge of, trying to minimize using generalization words, like saying, if I do something wrong or she does something wrong, and we say, well, why do you always do this? Or why do you never do this? Or, one of the things with me is, if I did something, let's say if I cleaned this table and I left a speck there, and if she said, you left a speck there, and I'm thinking to myself, I cleaned the whole table, I left one speck. What happened to the positive side? Thanks for cleaning the table, but you left a speck there, something like that. But no, I think part of it is just understanding cycles too. Is where if I'm saying something and I notice that it kind of gets her worked up, then I need to recognize that needs to change. And so for example, and I'll go with something similar, where if she says going back to the table, if she said, okay, you left the speck there, and then I have to understand, what is my response now? I have to be intentional about how do I carry this conversation on? Because there's option A, I could get really upset and say, well, and get all excited, and then that wouldn't help, because then she would probably be, and it will keep, the cycle continues, and it keeps going up and up. So it's about really being intentional on being aware of the situation and understanding that you always have a choice in how you respond, and you don't always have to match the level. If she gets upset, I have to be aware that, okay, how do I keep this from becoming too, at a level where it's no longer healthy.
Good.
De-escalated things.
No, that's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what Shay said, that's literally how we honestly avoid conflict. We're very intentional with response.
How we manage it.
How we manage it, but they don't become a conflict because how we respond. So I think what he highlighted was I did have the tendency to focus on the negative. So it's like, oh, there's a speck there versus saying, oh, babe, thank you so much for wiping down the table. You kind of missed the spot, but that's okay. So when he brought that to my attention, I was like, oh, I could see that from my mom. Growing up, we would clean the house, but she would only highlight what we didn't get to do, so it trickled down into my marriage. And then, the scripture said a soft answer turns away wrath. So that is definitely what we do too, because I notice when I'm really upset, if I pause and speak slowly, or even if he's upset and I just speak very calmly to him, it just kind of like diffuse the situation and it remove, so we kind of handle conflict in that way, and words that we stay away from is the generalization words, because you basically are mischaracterizing the person as in like this is the only thing they do, and it makes the person not even hear the point of the argument. So if you just stay away from always, never, all the time, you do, it kind of help you just focus on what's really the issue. And lastly, I think monitoring how that person's day went. So if he comes home and he seems just tired and burnt out, that is not the time to bring up something that can wait. So I usually look at, mannerism. Are you in the mood to chill? Do you need space by yourself before I bring up something that's just intangible, like it's not even that important?
Right.
So,
That is good.
Yes, no, that is excellent. Because there are some words that just grate at you. It's better to just avoid them. You know what I'm saying?
But I'm going to use us because I always walk into those words. I'm like, but no, I like the way you were saying de-escalating, and I think that takes a lot of. First of all, self-awareness. Let's be first self-awareness, because a lot of times when we're in the midst of an argument, and I know how I am, because I'm feeling you either feeling like you're the victor or you're victimizing somebody. So the thing is, when I'm in an argument, and especially when I'm talking with Rosemary, because she's the closest person to me, and I think she ought to know. And I think we do that with our spouses too. They ought to know how I feel. I like the fact that you say I monitor. Let me think, is this really important to bring this up right now? And then you're realizing, and I think all of us are growing in our humanness when we begin to say, especially in our really, really close relationship, because that's really where the love of Christ, that's where your witness is. I tell people that all the time. Your greatest witness, it's your kids, yes, but your greatest witness is your spouse.
Yes.
Because you are supposed to be that witness to them as well.
That's true.
And then de-escalating and talking and staying away from those words. We may not do it 100% of the time, but to be mindful of it, those are some great points. Anybody?
Especially when you have children too. That's
anybody, please, if you got something you want to say.
Go ahead.
I think a good point that they brought out was that Chase and Magda brought out was that, dealing with the conflict and learning how to respond. That response is the biggest thing, because you meant no harm when you went to your spouse to bring this situation up, but it was the way that I gave it. Right? And then another thing is we have to think about, I want to deal with the conflict and not the person. Right? Because I love my spouse. So I don't want to deal with my spouse right now. I want to just deal with what happened. And if we can stick to what happened, then everything else doesn't matter. Because no matter if we stick to what happened, and I may roll my eyes or I may tilt my head or whatever the case may be, he will look beyond that, and we're still dealing with what happened.
And I think
that helps.
That's good.
When you do that, just from talking, it's always good to use those I statements. I feel when you do this, I feel like that. That way, I'm sticking with. For example, I say, sweetie, I feel when you look at me like that, you're telling me that I should shut up.
And then I said, go.
But you want to use them.
Always do that.
You need to de-escalate. But using those I statements, you stay right on the conflict.
Yeah.
You don't bring in the one from last week,
Right.
last year, 6 years ago. No, let that go. But stick with the I statements. I feel when you do this, it makes me feel like that, and then wait for a response.
Exactly.
And you got to practice that, and practice it when you're not in a conflict.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. Yes.
And
How do you guys feel about
Yeah, I was gonna say recognizing like you said, you recognize when you do this happens. So resolving the conflict, and I think that's key too. Knowing like what sets your spouse off, because I had to learn that, and I still go through that, figure out what's the things that set her off. You know, so that's important. I like how you said that too.
Good words.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you said a word that just it hit my ear when you said practice, because what we're talking about here, it won't just happen like this, right?
That's right.
It when it happens and you start to kind of learn and go through it, and you kind of grow, so you can't really beat yourself up if you learn what you're supposed to do, but then I messed up and I didn't do, I didn't remember the principles.
Yes.
But it's important the next time to do better.
Yes.
Or in the midst of the
Exactly. And sometimes I know early on when we would have like arguments, and I process things a little bit slower than she does. So I'd be sitting there and just a little bit more pensive on my part.
Sure.
So she would be probably still in the discussion, and I'm like slowly trying to respond or think about my response. And then she would probably kind of get a little bit upset because she's thinking I'm not engaged or I don't feel like this is important just because I'm not responding at the speed that she would like me to.
Right.
And I think we've learned that, she learned that that's something that I do is try to be more pensive and think about my response. And I've also tried to speed up a little bit just so that she doesn't feel like I'm not, it's not important to me. So, things like that.
Or at least vocalize that. Maybe I'm thinking. In the beginning, it was just stay quiet and like blink mine. And I'm like, you're done? So I need you to vocalize. Like, I'm thinking, I'm hearing you. I'm just thinking. So I think just being vocal about your emotions and process is important. Because now when he takes his long pause, I'm like, okay, you're still here with me.
Go ahead.
And one thing too, to add to all of that, when you're dealing with conflict, you have to always come back and you have to apologize. If you made the error, then come back and apologize, because your spouse is probably waiting on that. Right? Because that's something that I've worked on and at times still working on, right? And so when conflict comes up and things have happened, admit to your fault. I forgot the spot, I'm so sorry. I'll do better next time, or whatever the case may be during the conflict. But saying I'm sorry makes a
big difference.
Makes a big difference.
Yes. And also, you said something. There are some things that are important to you, but not important to her. And we all make that mistake. We're like, well, it's really not important that there's the speck on the table. But to someone like you, who's a little OCD about keeping the table clean, that's very important. And so I think we have to learn what's important to each other and honor that.
I like two words that you mentioned, then you can make a comment. No, go ahead, sister. Go ahead.
Yes. So I was going to say something that really stuck out that you said. With me, a lot of times we got to understand that sometimes the conflicts that we allow to keep going in our marriage is because of a childhood, like she said, something from childhood, and we don't understand that we're dealing with someone new, and it's not that person that may have reminded us of something that person, our spouse, is doing. So like for me, a lot of the conflicts that I would arise with my husband, and I would just lash out on him, be angry, is because of the hurt of losing someone that I thought was like really close to me. And that person, I felt abandoned, I felt left, I felt hurt and wounded. And so when my husband would do something, I would think back of that person that abandoned me, and I would just lash out, and then the conflict would continue instead of me realizing this is your husband. This is not that person who left you and felt you abandoned and left you feeling abandoned. So a lot of times we deal with conflict from the lenses of what we went through or what someone did to us.
That's true. That's true.
I was thinking about what you were saying, and that is so true. It's, I can't think of the guy that I was looking at that I wanted to go to his study, and I'll tell you the name later. He says, say if you have 100% of your conflicts, right? 70% of them will not be resolved. And they say it's because couples like to keep some kind of conflict between them. And because sometimes you just feel like picking with your spouse. So you bring up one of those things that you know is going to get them going because you feel like fighting today. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But sometimes, we're like that little kid at the store. Or, just joking, like I have 2 older brothers, and I remember if I ever wanted to mess with my older brothers, I'd go and hit them and then run to my dad. You know what I'm talking about? And they're like, and they not doing that. And I said, I'm going to get them now. They just looking at football going, bam, bam, bam. And then I run to my dad. And my dad go, boy, what you doing here? No, Dad, I just want to come and see what you doing.
I did it.
So I think there are those things within us, that little kid in us that just want to poke. Want to poke. And that's okay. But it's that 30%, what we call life-shaping question, like the one you were saying, when you feel abandoned, when you're addressing those deep hurts that you really do have to resolve. So, and we all know what those are when we feel as if I feel you're making me feel less than. Or you're making me feel as if I don't matter. Or I don't feel you value me as a person. Those deep, piercing questions. That's like 30% of the men, they have to be resolved because if not, they will automatically escalate into other things, and you don't even know why you're fighting. But they go back to this thing that I feel victimized. I feel that you undermine me. I feel that you don't value me. I feel that you treat me less than. But you can't get through that little hole because that hole is so big and everything just falls right in it. So, and I like what you were saying, intentional and cycle. We do need to know our mates' intent. We need to be intentional in our response. But we need to know everybody's, how you doing today? Is this a good day? I mean, if your husband or wife is working in taxes and it's around the end of March, that's no stressful for them. Let's not go there and have that real deep conversation. Baby, where are we in our relationship? No. Not
right now.
I got so many taxes to do.
I got numbers in my head.
I got numbers in my head. I'm not. You're important, mind you, but I got. Not today. I know what. But not today. You're important. You really are, but not right now. All right.
All right, but you mentioned home, and that kind of leads us to our next question for our elderly couple.
Pros. I didn't say that. I said pros.
So this
It's not a conflict.
Honestly, unfriend Bobby on Facebook.
I said pros.
So this is for Raymond and Carrie, and what I want to ask is, what does home mean to you, and what qualities must it have for you, and what was home like in your families growing up, and how that influenced your marriage?
Wow, that's a good question. Really good question. I would say for me growing up, and I'm going to start backwards and work the question upward, my home was chaotic growing up. I had my mom was raising 4 children. She had men, coming in and out, but it was just chaotic. There was a lot of fighting, a lot of drinking. We weren't, in church or anything like that. The kids, we were all scattered. We would get up in the mornings and do our own thing, like go our own ways. There was no family dinners or any of that growing up for me. So growing up, I saw a lot of negative. And growing up, I thought that was the way life was, really, because that's all we saw, right? But then as I got older, I always had this thing in my mind, and I didn't know Christ at the time, but I always said when I was a little girl, I will not live like that. That's something that I always had in the back of my mind. And as I grew up and that statement stood there, I literally walked it out. Right? So the things that my mom did or my dad did or my brothers did or my sister, I didn't do those things. Right? I didn't party, I didn't drink, I didn't I was not fighting with men. Like I wasn't doing any of that stuff.
Okay.
So growing up and we getting married, for me, my home is very important.
Oh, wow.
Like my household is our sanctuary.
Yes.
Like it has to have peace.
Okay.
It has to be maintained, cleanliness, like that is our thing. And I think I got that from just what I seen in growing up.
Wow.
The only thing that I think our family did together growing up was every Saturday morning my mom would wake us up at 7 o'clock a.m. to clean the house.
Okay.
After that, there was no togetherness, right? So in our home, we do everything together. We share everything together. Our house is very just quiet.
Oh,
we
wow.
love it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I think my wife summed it all up. Our house is a sanctuary, literally. It is. It's peaceful, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when I say we don't raise our voice in our house, I'm a very loud person in my house as it relates to just cutting up and acting up and having a great time, a lot of fun. But we don't raise our voice at each other in our home. Our conversations, our disputes and our conflict is just like this. This is how we talk. This is the vocals we use. It never goes above this. We don't say things to hurt each other. This is how we deal with conflict. So we could be angry as two wet hens, and we are just like this, having a conversation, talking it through. Here's how you made me feel. Here's what I'm feeling. Here's how I'm processing this, what have you. We don't yell. We don't slam doors. You don't raise your voice in my house. You just, we don't do it because.
He has a name for my raised voice.
Yeah. My wife's nickname is Mimi. Because, she changed her voice like, but I said I would Mimi. I think sometimes my wife has there's people in her head. What's in your head, man? Where'd you get that from? That is not what I said. How'd you get all that out? Who was talking in your head?
This thing right did that.
All these little people. So now she's got a little character Mimi because Mimi likes to raise her voice. So we're in the car or we're somewhere and I say something. But I said, whoa, Mimi, hold on. I'm not doing that today, right? So I know who I'm dealing with now, Mimi. I'm just trying to figure them other two out. That one, the deep voice, but I said, whoa, hang on a minute. You sound like Bartholomew. But and so that's our house is a sanctuary.
Okay.
It is the place where God and us dwell.
Okay.
And so we just believe that entering in our home, people should be able to experience the peace of God. We believe our house should 24 hours a day, 7 days a week be a place that anyone could pop up unannounced, unexpected, and be going through absolutely anything and sit on our couch and just feel God's peace. Experience the peace of God. We cut up, we have fun, we joke, we laugh. We are the biggest clowns in the house, but it is just so peaceful. And I credit my wife for having made our home a sanctuary. She is a phenomenal homemaker.
Wow.
And so I deal with so many things in the course of a day.
Yes.
Counseling people, my own personal frustrations and all type of things. The people in my environment. So when I get home some days, I need to know. I live to go home.
Oh, wow. That's
It is a
beautiful.
joy just in the back of my mind driving. So I can't wait to get home.
Right. Wow.
Because I know that my wife has created such an atmosphere that when I step through the door, whatever, I can take any frustration and any burden in my home and know with confidence if I can just get to the house.
Yes.
If I can just make it home, I know that I can find peace.
Wow.
And so she's made it great. As far as childhood, I don't have any memories of childhood with family. With cousins and uncles and aunts, yes, but my mother was a single mom. My father was never around and involved in my life. I've seen him a few times, but we never had a connection. My mother and I never had a real connection. So I have no memories of watching television together or having dinner together. Sitting down or going to the movies or getting dressed. I can remember a couple of times she taking me fishing, but even then it was like, hey, sit down and be quiet, boy, you're gonna scare the fish. But there was never any intimacy in our home within that, with that framework. So I don't remember any of that. So I have spent my life as a father and as a husband injecting into the lives of my family all the things I did not get, because I realize how important they are. And I realize the damage that they do to a person when they're not given.
Okay.
And God, and one would say, well, how do you know your family need that? Well, I believe personally God put family together to have that. And so it has to be a need for every family.
Yes.
Every family's need might be a little different, but it has to be on the top tier of a family's, on their to-do list. And so that's how I'll answer that question.
So when did you make a decision, so to speak, that
I was thinking about that too.
Yes, that you were going to have a different type of family than what you grew up in?
Because one of the things I was thinking about, we're seeing the finished product.
Yeah, we're seeing
and
that.
We're seeing that, but there had to be, and I was going to ask that question as a good reporter would ask. When did you all come to the decision, individually and personally, individually and collectively, that I don't want, because there had to be that mental shift. Because we're framed in where we are, we grow up where we are, but we have to make that switch to say, I don't want this. When did that occur in your life, individually or collectively?
For me, I always had that thought that I was not going to live the way that my mom and my family lived. But I think for me, it happened when I got my own place. Because as long as I was living with my mom, that stuff was still going on. I was not a part of it, because anytime it happened, I'm very reserved. So I would either go to my bedroom, leave the house, or something like that. But for me, it happened actually when I got my own place. We got our own place, actually. We were not saved at the time that we did come together. So we got our own place, and we created the atmosphere that we wanted. And us coming together and getting our own place, that's actually when we started knowing Christ. So we started creating things, and even when we had kids, well, I had two before meeting him. We have one biologically together. But when we got our own place and we had the kids, we had to create a different atmosphere. I had to, in my mind, I wanted a different atmosphere for my children than what I grew up in. So all that I saw that was negative, I turned it around for my life to say, I'm not doing that, I'm not going down that road. Not that we didn't face things, not that we didn't have things come up, but it was always at a place where we could bounce back from it and create something totally different than what I saw.
So I'll answer. So let me answer the part about the peace. So my life was full of chaos. My life started to really go downhill. My hero was my grandfather. So he kept me rooted and grounded, and I spent a lot of time with him, my cousins, hanging out. My grandfather passed when I was 13. When he passed away, my life fell into deep depression at 13 years old, because he was all I knew. He was the person who was my safe place. So he taught me work ethics. He was just my hero. So when he passed away, I had no one else or anything else to keep me grounded, to discipline me, to hold me accountable. So I started then chasing and searching for family, for community. And I ended up in some really dark places in life. And so when I came into the knowledge of Christ, it was the first time in my life that it had ever been quiet. So I experienced peace. So that's why my home after all these years is peaceful, because I long for peace in my life. I'm still chasing peace. And the only place I've ever been able to find real, genuine peace where my soul is not tormented is in Christ.
In the Lord Jesus.
It's having an atmosphere at home that, as Draylen so eloquently put it, having that quiet time, collecting my thoughts. Because even after all these years, I still battle with in my own mind some of the demons that I dealt with back then. The fighting and the warring and the inter struggles that I dealt with, the depression and things of that nature. So I have to, and my wife and I have talked about this over the years, so she is intentional about helping to create an atmosphere so it's not chaotic. When I'm going through, she knows when the church has become too much, when the people that I have to deal with has become too much. She starts safeguarding and putting these things up around me to make sure that I'm in a place of peace, so that I'm not tormented internally anymore. And the last thing, as it relates to family, I think I just mentioned that I've always chased family. I've always longed for a mother A real mother that I can just pop up in her house unannounced, go through her refrigerator and kitchen. I've had a lot of, and I've got a lot of spiritual mothers. I've got people who say, hey, you're my son no matter what. But it's still that element where you might need an appointment before you see them, or you might have to check in first or make sure they're ready. But I've always longed for, I envy what I see people have from the perspective they're kissing on their mom, they're hanging out with their mom, and you know, and as a father, I longed for a dad, someone that I can just pop up, hey pops, how you doing? I can just call unannounced and spend quality time with, and they're not busy. And so even at 49 years old, in fact, I had an episode about 2 weeks ago, and I just found myself at my desk just crying, and I missed that. I longed for it. So that's why I'm so with it to give it to my family. The last thing I'll say is, but I got to be careful there. Because sometimes I can try to live my life vicariously through my family. My boys are grown and they're out of the house, and I think we did a tremendous job. But even now, I still find myself saying, "Hey, when y'all gonna come by and see your dad? Hey, when we gonna get together and watch the game together?" That's what I want. That's not necessarily what they want. They're grown now. They've experienced. They want to live life, and that doesn't mean they don't love me. But I got to make sure that I don't mistaken their maturity and the great job I did as a father as now them abandoning me. So
you know,
that's good. It's real good.
I want to hit on a couple of things and from all of you because we talked about home, we talked about conflict, and we talked about attention. And when we look at these things, and I think you all did it so well.
Very well. Yes.
Even when you can face something like that, we all deal with the residuals. And I really want to talk about that. How do you handle the residual? This is when you know what the issue is, but sometimes the residual is that after effect that I'm not quite, it's still leaking out a little bit. It's still, I'm still hitting the mark sometime, missing it some other time. How do you handle those residuals? Because they do happen. I don't care how well educated we are, how much wisdom we have, we are still very much human. And then we do have things that we sometimes elude us at times. How do you handle the residuals? And anybody can, that's for anybody. When we're looking at home, when you're looking at dealing with conflicts, and when you look at dealing with your relationships, and attention, the attention that you need.
Attention. And the high nature. The high nature.
Okay, you know I gotta say this. That's my new word. I love that word.
Lord.
No, I'm just kidding.
So I would say for me, with the home piece, the one thing I could say about my home that I grew up in, it was perversion. I grew up in a lot of perversion. I was introduced to porn at 6 years old. I found a tape of my uncle's and I was like, oh, I wonder what this is. I popped it in and I was looking, I was like, and I watched it. And then by the time I was 8, I was experimenting with myself. By the time I was 12, I was experimenting with objects. By the time I was 14, 15, and 16, I was experimenting with other people, women, dudes, it didn't matter. I didn't care. I just needed to do it. And so for me, it was something that I wanted to shield and protect my children from, because I knew how that damaged me. I knew how I didn't get free from that until 3 years after we got married. Like officially, like free. And I wanted to protect my kids from that. So it's still something that I'm working through as far as how not to shield my children so much to the point where they don't experience the world and experience life for themselves. So for me, home is, I feel like it should be a safe place. I feel like it should be a place where you should be able to come to and feel safe from anything that can harm you. So for me, that was my main thing. And that's what I try to build the foundation on for home is safety. That's for me.
Yes, that's wonderful.
I love that. Wow. You have something?
I think for me, and I'm not trying to be so spiritual, right? But for me, it's just really being before God. It's like really, and him reminding me of where I've come from. Him reminding me that I'm not that person anymore. Him because sometimes you need reminders.
Yeah.
You need to be reminded that that's no longer you, or that's no longer your place, or that's no longer your atmosphere. And so I think for me, it's just really being before God and saying, thank you for the reminders.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for what I've seen, what I've been through, what I'm even dealing with now, but knowing that your grace and your mercy is there with me.
Amen.
I think for me, it's just really being on bending knees and before him.
Amen.
Okay.
Praise God.
For me, what helped me deal with this, like you said, we fall from there, is accountability. I'll hold myself accountable, but I also expect others to hold me accountable too. So if I'm getting off the ball, somebody step in and be like, hey, look, you're messing up. You need to get it back together. And I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. Or even myself, when I sit and I think, and I'm like, look, we were doing this to stand at there. You're starting to get behind. You need to get back on that.
Right.
So accountability is what helps me.
And that's wonderful. And I know that the scripture does say, for example, how the older ladies need to help the younger ladies. And I've been in a position many times talking to younger women who, they're, complaining about their husband, and I have to say, look, if you just do what your husband says right now, it'll be much better. And the Bible says, submit yourselves one to another.
Yeah.
The older men need to speak to the younger men, and I think we're talking about accountability, and I do believe us older ladies, we need to help the younger ladies be accountable. I need to say, your husband's been on the computer all day. He was doing you a favor by cleaning the table. Leave the man alone. So, sometimes we need the accountability, and I think the older people can do that. Yes.
Knowledge and experience is so much better than a person's opinion. So,
yes, that's very good. That's very good. Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead, sister.
I think for me, like, residual is not a bad thing. I think it kind of bring awareness to that you still need bricks, so pride can't creep in.
Yes.
And it's also like the enemy will use it as a foothold to try to get you in condemnation. However, I think residual is kind of a good thing to keep you accountable.
Okay.
So even like for me, when I go home, my upbringing was great. I mean, we grew up very traditional, religious, but the only thing was my mom's very negative, or like I said, focus on the negative, or she stonewalls a lot when it comes to arguments. So stonewalling is more so if you're in an argument and you're like, okay, you guys are not coming to agreement, you just shut down completely. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not gonna have sex with you, or I'm not cooking, or I'm not doing anything, because you just shut the person out completely. So my mom is a pro at that. She can stonewall for 5 days. Wow. My daddy learned, okay, let me just cook my own meals. She has mastered, and then growing up, I just never liked that. So sometimes going home, I still see these traits, and it just make me remember myself in my marriage, that okay, I have to not replicate that. So I think residuals can be a good thing if we are willing to accept the awareness of it.
Yes, very good.
I think one of the things when you was talking about that, I do like the concept of residuals and awareness, because again, none of us have arrived.
Right.
And if you think you have, let me tell you, your bus is gone. You're not there. But that awareness helps us, and it keeps us before, like you were saying, Carrie, before the throne.
Right.
You need somewhere where you can be honest with God, and you say, God, I blew it.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
She was right, or he was right.
Yes.
I saw that from a different perspective.
Yes.
Because once you are on your knees and the Holy Spirit and the Lord shows you, He's showing you who you really are. That is the impetus for you to get up and say, baby, I'm wrong.
Yes.
You were right. And I like what you're saying. I mean, say it with your words. Don't imply it.
Yes.
Don't send me a card. I need you to say it to me. I was wrong. And this is, and I was wrong. And don't just say you're wrong. Tell me why you're wrong.
Yes.
And then move on forward with that, because that's how we grow to be healthier people. But I do understand what you're saying, that not only do I need to submit to you, but you need to submit to me.
Right,
it needs to be that mutual thing. And I like that's what you were saying.
Right.
Raymond, I like what he was saying, because I can hear when he's talking, he's like, you know, Carrie is equal with me. She's right there. I'm not here, and she's down here. We're just
right.
like this,
That's
and that's
right.
why they have stuff. And things as couples, the more you realize that you're like this and not like this, I think your life will be way better.
That's right.
It'll be way better. So anyway,
Anyway,
I think that's it. Unless we have some last thing,
Yeah.
I want to say this has been a blast. Thank you all. Thank you. I want to say, sweetie, you look marvelous.
Thank you.
You know, she keeps me calm down because I am very wild. We got to bring it in. But I want to say thank you. Thank you for your candor. Thank you for your honesty. And thank you all for listening and watching. Hopefully we'll do this again if I can get this group back together again.
We will.
And we have 12 questions, and maybe we can go through the rest of them a little later, but thank you all for being here.
Okay.
Thank you all. I mean, give yourselves a hand. And I guess we'll see them next time.
we will see you next time. Happy hour at Fountain of Blessings.
Yay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm going to tell you guys.